Hello, and a very good evening to all of you who are joining in for this episode 3 of the season 1 linked up with Amitha, the LinkedIn live talk show. And I warmly welcome all of you who are joining in today from LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile. And today I'm actually streaming this to Facebook as well because uh, we have quite a large audience on Facebook who are connected to the guest speaker today. So therefore, I thought of actually streaming this to Facebook as well today. Otherwise, usually I stream this on LinkedIn. And I'm seeing people are connecting in from both the platforms. So you can just leave me a comment whether you are connecting from LinkedIn or from Facebook. So I see quite a lot of people are joining in from LinkedIn as usual. Uh, and few people already connected from Facebook as well. So leave a comment. Let me know from where you are connecting, which network you are connecting from. Are you connecting from LinkedIn or are you connecting from Facebook? Right. So quickly about the show, linked up with Amitha. This is a show that I actually planned last year because last year I got this LinkedIn live streaming facility for my profile. So I thought of actually doing something useful with this feature because it's not available for everybody. LinkedIn is not enabling it for everybody. So I thought of actually kind of like doing it, uh, making the maximum use of it. And I planned this new talk show linked up with Amitha. My idea is basically to create a platform for us to have an open discussion with some professional in the business field, in academia, to get their experience, talk about their experience, to create a platform to share their knowledge with the people who are connected to me through LinkedIn and of course through Facebook. So that was the original idea that I had about this program. And at the same time, I wanted to make sure that the first season of this, I'm going to invite all the people, all the guest speakers for this first season of this linked up with Amita will be Sri Lankan expats living in various other countries who are at the peak of their game, who are maybe they are, they are doing really extremely well in their professional career or their academic career. So that's what we are going to do with this season 1. The reason is I want to create a platform where there are like a whole lot of young Sri Lankans who would want to create a career, professional career, or an academic career, and I want to make them feel inspired by listening to some of these stories from the Sri Lankan expats who are making it big in other countries. So we get quite a lot of people. As I said, I mean, it's largely from LinkedIn. All the comments that I'm getting, Gihan, I see Shavindra from connecting from LinkedIn, and Gihan, and we have Tarangani, Lochana, Dinesh, Salman is here, and there was a very familiar face. Yes, Sulakana is here, and hi, Aminda Lakmal. I know my a mutual friend of myself and the guest speaker tonight. So we have quite a lot of people joining in. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest speaker tonight. So I'll get the guest speaker on screen in a minute, in a moment. But before that, let me actually read out this introduction about our guest speaker tonight. Dr. Samantika Gallage is the assistant professor in marketing at University of Nottingham, and she is a consumer behavior specialist. She completed her doctoral degree at the University of Nottingham Business School in 2018. Samantika's research interest is in the area of transformative consumer research, particularly focusing on how consumer identities and emotions could affect social transformation. She has experience working in both academia and in the industry in Australia, UK, and in Sri Lanka. And these are some of her qualifications. She holds a doctor of philosophy, PhD from the University of Nottingham, Master of Science Marketing from the same university, and Master of Business Administration (MBA) from the Postgraduate Institute of Management (PIM) Sri Lanka, and her first bachelor's degree in marketing management is from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Now, above all, there is something else that I want to mention about Samantika, Dr. Samantika. It was because of her that I ended up being an undergraduate lecturer. So it was like about 8 years ago. She invited me to become a visiting lecturer of digital marketing at the University of Sri Jadhanapura. So that's how actually I got into undergraduate training. So I still remember that. So without any further delay, let me welcome Samantika on screen. How are you?
Thank you, Amitha. Thank you, Amit, for the great introduction. Yes, of course, I remember those days how I used to tag you along to do undergraduate lectures, especially introducing digital marketing at Japura. So, yes,
Yeah.
that's how I got to know you. So, thank you so much for inviting me. And I also see a couple of my previous colleagues, students, and my friends who are here today. So, really, really excited to talk about. All those things, all my experience of studying in Sri Lanka, then coming to the UK, working in different parts of the world. So I'm excited about the talk today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I remember actually how it all started. I think it was one of my those whiny posts, whiny Facebook posts actually, which
Yes,
created the whole conversation about like why no, I mean none of the Sri Lankan universities, educational institutes are putting their effort to create digital marketers where there are like so much of
lot of
opportunities. This was I think 2012, if I'm not mistaken,
12. Yes,
and
2012. Yes,
yes, yes. That Facebook status I put on my Facebook actually started a discussion, started a conversation, and then Samantika, along with the rest of the colleagues back at the university, created that program. And I'm seeing like a lot of the people. I think I saw Sulakana here. So
yes,
one of our earliest students from that
students.
batch, and there are like several other people who are doing really well in digital marketing field coming out from that program from the University of Sri Jadhanapura. So I'm really proud of all our students.
Efforts.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It was long before when there was quite a big demand from the industry, whereas the universities didn't really tap into that opportunity where we even academics, we didn't really know what sort of programs that we should introduce in terms of digital marketing. So that time you were doing quite well in the industry. So we had to collaborate and bring something to the give something to the students and also then help the industry to have those experts. So yeah, Sulakana, yes, you were the first digital marketing batch, I still remember. And I see, like Amita said, some of the students are doing extremely well, not just in Sri Lanka, but also in other parts of the world, like for instance, Sitira in Canada, I know that he's also in digital marketing. So there are so many of our students doing really well all across the world. So really, really proud and glad that we were able to help some of those students.
Yes, absolutely. So, Samantika, so let's get to the topic or the deep end, or rather the we'll start with a very, I mean, very much a casual question. So, I know, I mean, a lot of the people who are tuning in today, they might know you from the university days and from various other places, but like for those who are not like aware about your career, tell us a little more about yourself. I mean, bit of about your background, but I mean, how you started in Sri Lanka, your school days, your university days, then how you actually ended up migrating or going overseas. So tell
Yeah.
us a little more about that. Yeah.
Okay, so about myself, a little bit about my background. So currently, like you said, I'm working as assistant professor in marketing at Nottingham University, the business school. So I completed the PhD from the same school, and I've been working in various different universities because after finishing my PhD in 2018, I had to go to Australia because my husband was doing his PhD during that time. So I worked in two universities in Australia in different capacities, teaching and research. So, and I was moving around also in the UK. I was working in a couple of other universities as well. So, before moving to academia, I was working for Unilever Sri Lanka. So, I joined
Right.
Unilever as a management trainee. So, then I, I I worked there for a bit before joining academia. So personally, so I'm married and I have a little baby boy. My background in Sri Lanka is I'm coming from a very middle class family where my father was a government servant and my mother was a housewife. And I benefited from the free education. Thanks to the free education, I'm here today. So, and I have three brothers. And My school days, so I started my schooling in a private Catholic school called Our Lady School, Nuvarelia, whereas my father
Uh-huh.
was there and I was born in Nuvarelia because he was
All right.
moving around a lot. And then I did, and I did my secondary education in Pushpadana Girls College, Kandy, where I did my A levels there as well. I really enjoyed my school days. Actually, when I think of my school days, I was involved in various extracurricular activities, especially sports. I was the games captain of the school as well. So, and I represented my school in under 15, 17, 19 hockey teams, and I was able to bring various achievements, all island achievements, including all island runners up and third place to the school. So I was quite involved in sports. And then I did my first degree at University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, which I fondly remember my uni days, where I built many networks, lifelong friendships, and I learned so many life lessons, not just the degree per se, but I learned so many life lessons. I was able to have friends from various different social groups, was able to understand what's happening in the country in terms of, like, especially with those friendships, how things are happening all
Yeah.
across the island. So, and also I was able to continue doing my sports in the uni as well, where I achieved university colors in hockey. I was the captain of the university hockey team as well. So, and I did various extracurricular activities, especially in the Marketing Management Association. So it was a really good time. And then after my degree, I was able to join Unilever as a management trainee. And while while working there, those days Professor Neville Varnakulasuriya was the head of the marketing department. He asked me to come and do a guest session for the diploma students during that time.
Right.
So I was able to come and do that session, and I realized that my true passion lies on something else, not working in the industry in branding or anything, but my true passion lies on teaching and acquiring knowledge, like, I mean, something that allows me to nurture young people and to
Yeah.
make a tangible difference, but also something that is closer to my heart. And also I was curious to explore knowledge in certain areas that
Mm.
I will not be able to do it in the industry per se. So I
Mhm.
thought, maybe I should explore a little bit more the academic world, and I joined academia after that. And here I am today, after working in so many different universities.
Yeah.
This is my career. Still, I'm like, I have a long way to go, of course.
Yeah.
Still, I'm at the very
So actually,
beginning.
it's so inspiring. I mean, your whole journey. You said, like, I mean, you started your school in Nuvarelia, and then how you actually gradually came out, right? I mean, it's really inspiring to listen to that, Samantika. So okay, so Samantika, now, I mean, going through your LinkedIn profile, right, and I actually learned that your PhD thesis was on emotions and identity negotiations of consumers while giving up excessive drinking. right? Now this is a strange topic. I should say this is a strange topic for a marketing PhD, right? And what were the reasons behind choosing this particular topic? And tell us some interesting findings you unearthed during or your study for this PhD research.
Yes, so like you said, Amit, it's not a very conventional topic. When you think of marketing, it's either branding or I don't know, digital marketing. But this is kind of unconventional topic. But having said that, there are quite a lot of unconventional topics that people study these days, like explore. Not just these days, from 1960s, 70s, actually, if you really carefully
Mhm,
look at these things. So when I was working in the industry, and also when I was doing various research projects in my undergrad, and also like while observing and learning about marketing, one thing I observed and I questioned was the power imbalance in the marketplace. So do consumers actually have any sovereignty like we always talk about in marketing, or do these organizations have that power, whereas they use these rosy words to say that yes, consumer is the king or consumer is the god. So I always question that, do consumers actually have that power that we talk about in marketing?
mhm,
So but I was never able to really unpack this, but I was never able to work in any of these areas and question the discipline that we are working and we are teaching, because we are the
mhm,
marketing, like we are the academics in marketing, we are the teachers of marketing, whereas how can we really question these things? But I really didn't understand that until I went to the UK to do my masters, where I was
mhm,
fortunate to study a module called critical marketing, actually.
mhm,
So in this critical marketing module, the two professors who taught this module, they really unpacked all the things that we learned in marketing all this time. And they asked us to really question so many marketing practices, which was quite an eye opener, actually.
mhm.
So then I decided to do a PhD in critical marketing to unpack some of those consumer vulnerabilities in the marketplace. Like I
All
said
right.
before, do consumers actually have that choice, or they influenced by many other aspects around them? So for that, the
Mm,
context of alcohol was perfect, because especially
mhm.
in a country like the
Yeah.
UK, alcohol consumption is part of their social life. So do they actually have that sovereignty to make that decision, or is it really influenced by not just by advertising, but
Mm,
also the culture that they live in, their reference group, the social groups? So that's how I came in to do this this PhD.
yeah.
And I was fortunate that these two professors were my PhD supervisors, and later one of them resigned from the university, and they recruited me to replace that, and now I'm the teaching the critical marketing module as well. So
Mm,
some of the findings, like you asked me, were that, like I said before, uh, even though that we say that consumers have the sovereignty in this particular context, they don't have that sovereignty, because it's big part of their social life. They are being
yeah.
stigmatized, and it's costing a lot of money to the health system as well.
Mhm,
So from my study there, I was able to give some policy level recommendations.
mm,
It's not just about banning advertising, it's not just about thinking about advertising, but also moving beyond that and thinking positively and creating
yeah.
those positive identities about these consumers.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And one more thing, one more interesting thing that I mean came to my mind, Samantika, as you were explaining, like I mean, yeah, I mean alcohol consumption, it has a lot to do with addictions and I mean
mm,
all that, right? uh, Not only alcohol, there can be so many other things which people might get addicted to in a consumerist society, right?
yeah,
So as marketers, even though actually we only take like alcohol as a example here in your study, but I believe that your findings can be actually inferred into other consumption areas where marketers can get a whole lot of like insights about the consumer behavior. Am I correct?
Yeah, definitely, Amita. So that is a good thing that you talk about it. Actually, those implications are not just for the alcohol was just the context, whereas there are
Hmm.
so many other things that actually the consumer society keep telling the consumers you need to consume more to be happy. You need to consume
Absolutely.
more to, for instance, let's take the wedding industry in Sri Lanka. So there are various musts that people should do. Like if you don't want to do those things, then people will look at you like, why are you not doing this? Like giving gifts to people, or like spending lots of money on photographs, doing pre-shoots. All these things are part of the consumer society, where that
Hmm.
consumers feel that they have to do certain things if they want to like portray some sort of identity. And now I've seen like it's been so long now, I keep on seeing new things are adding up to these particular things, like proposing and like
Yeah.
engaging and doing shoots and all those things. So actually it's one of those, like all these implications can be useful for other industries as well, not
Yeah.
just alcohol per se.
Absolutely. I mean, the example you took, the wedding industry, right? I mean, let's use the word wedding industry in Sri Lanka. It's a classic example of how social pressure create an entire industry
Yeah.
over the last like 10 to 15 maybe years, right? All right.
Yes.
So, Samantika, actually, now your answer to my previous question actually brought us to a critical point of the topic today, the central topic today about sustainable marketing. So we'll talk a bit about sustainable marketing in a minute, but
Yeah.
before everything else, let's get it out. Clearly, what exactly is sustainable marketing for the benefit of our audience? Can you quickly explain what does it mean as sustainable marketing?
Yeah. So now, when we talk about sustainable marketing, Amita, there are so many definitions, and there's so much work has been done all around the world in this area. But if I have to like explain it using simple words, it's more like really doing responsible marketing, thinking about the environment, thinking about the society, and we need to meet the present needs of consumers, but also we need to think about the future generation as well. This is what we call as sustainable marketing. So it's about doing marketing in a more responsible way.
Most
Yes, thinking taking a more holistic approach in marketing rather than just focusing on profits. So in a nutshell, but if you look at definitions, you will see like various other definitions, but this is kind of the most
right.
simplest way that I can put it.
Sure, sure. Actually, I mean, I have a lot of questions about the topic, like
Yeah.
sustainable marketing. We'll come to that in a minute. But at the same time, like, I mean, like those who are joining live through LinkedIn, we have close to about like 40 people joining in from LinkedIn at the moment, and we have a few from Facebook as
Facebook.
well. If you have any questions, please leave it as a comment about the topic of sustainable marketing and any point that we are currently discussing. Please leave it as a comment. We will take it into the discussion. So
Um,
let me actually get into a very
Sorry, Amit.
yes.
Before moving on, shall I little bit explain how sustainable marketing came into the play, especially in the marketing
Surely
fraternity?
we'll
Yeah.
we'll do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in 1970s, actually, now before that, after the Industrial Revolution, most of the marketers were focusing on profits. Like we need to sell
Hmm.
things, we need to earn more profits. People have to sell. People have to consume more and more. So, but then in 1970s, marketing was used to quite natural environmental problems received interest from marketing academics. So
Hmm.
marketing was used to influence people about various ecological problems, like plant trees, don't cut trees, like using those kind of adverts where we call ecological marketing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then in late 80s, there was a concept called green marketing that came into play, which was an attempt to reduce the negative social and environmental impact from existing products and services. Like, for example, uh, basically, it was all about promoting less damaging products and services. Like, okay, don't use products that are not produced in a green process. Rather, consume more products that use a green process. That was the basic understanding behind that in 1980s. But
This
then,
green marketing concept, the whole
yes,
whole thing
whole
came
green
from that.
marketing.
Okay.
So basically, it is about promoting a less damaging product to the consumers,
Hmm.
but it is also about consumption, like consume more but consume something less damaging. So that was
Right.
the whole idea about it.
Right.
So but then various scholars, various environmental activists start talking about this, criticizing this, saying that this is a micro solution to a macro problem,
Right.
because basically we are telling consumers to consume. It's okay to consume, but consume less damaging products. It's not
Yeah.
really solving the problem. So, and also there was a big problem where so many companies started claiming green claims, which we call as green washing, because they want to have it as a differentiating point instead of really doing anything green. So they just want to jump into the green bandwagon because of course it's very trendy and people will love the idea. So that can be their differentiation point. So then later, with this critical aspect came the sustainable marketing, where it is more like a holistic thing where we need to focus on all the damaging aspects of the whole marketing process. So what companies extract, how they make products, and what they waste, and as consumers what we consume and how we dispose.
Hmm.
So now it's a more kind of a holistic thing rather
Yeah.
than just greening the production
Yeah,
process.
just there. I mean, I have a connecting question right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you already actually touched on this a little bit. Like, now, I see a paradox when you say like sustainable marketing, because, like, I mean, what we learn as marketers, we are supposed to actually persuade people to consume more, right? I mean, that's like, I mean, some people define like marketing as like, I mean, your ability to sell refrigerators to Eskimos, which I personally believe is like, I mean, that's not marketing, right? I mean, if you are selling refrigerators to Eskimos, you are not a good marketer, right? I mean, you are just dumping a product which the customer doesn't actually require, right? But there's this belief that marketing is all about persuading people to consume more, buy more of my product, not my competitor's product, right? And brush your teeth twice a day, thrice a day, right? So there are like so much of like different marketing strategies brands are using to make sure that we are as consumers, I mean, we can say we are consumers, we are marketers, we are consumers as well.
Yeah,
We end up
definitely.
like consuming more as a society. Now that has been the picture about marketing for decades. Now we talk about like sustainable marketing, and it's kind of like a paradox. So how we how we are to like, okay, of course, I mean, convincing the consumer, that's not going to be difficult, I'd say. I mean marketers can handle that. I mean, convincing the consumer. But how are we to convince the marketers that you have to be sustainable in your marketing activities? How are we to actually solve this paradox?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Amit. I think this is the same question I keep on getting from my students when I teach critical marketing as well. Why are you teaching this? Because we are the marketers. We will have to sell more and more when we go to the industry. So actually, Amit, persuading consumers to buy more is a very myopic thinking of marketing. Yes, it's
Mhm.
the practice for the last decades after the industrial revolution, but this mindset of marketers and also consumers have brought us into our knees, especially now we see these pandemics, all these social issues, uh, various other climate crises. All these things are affecting organizations. See, during COVID, how much organizations have to suffer. Similarly, whenever there's a flooding, whenever there's a landslide, whenever there's any other disaster, it's the very first, the one of the major things that organizations are have to struggle is with the profits that they are getting, because people don't have enough money. There's a catastrophe, of course, then like they don't have their customers to buy their products and services. So being like thinking like that is very myopic, because eventually the businesses will suffer if they start thinking
mm,
like this.
mm,
So being sustainable is, now businesses, one of the key things about businesses is to adapt to the demand of the changing world.
mm,
Now there's a urgent need to be sustainable, because we are talking about climate crisis. We see a lot of pandemics, epidemics are happening. So if we start thinking about sustainability, if businesses start thinking about sustainability, they are more likely to thrive in the long term and also enjoy the strategic benefits of being sustainable. So I see,
mm,
like for instance, MAS, mass holdings in Sri Lanka, they work quite a lot in the sustainability area, and I see that they are winning more customers because they are being more sustainable. And also, being sustainable has lots of advantages for organizations. They can identify new products, they can leverage using emerging technologies, they can have drive various efficiencies, and also the employees will be more motivated to work for a company that is thinking about the environment, and also um, thinking about the environment, and also thinking about the society as well. So it is all, it is also important that consumers will start thinking about the companies in a positive light, which will eventually increase the profitability. So I think, like this selling products, like I mean, the said correctly, selling refrigerators to Eskimos is the selling concept, which is a very low, very old marketing concept. We have long passed that era now. Now we are in a different era. So yes, businesses have to adopt to the changing needs of the world. That is what the marketers should do as part of the business organizations as well. um, yeah. Sorry, and the last thing, when we are doing this, especially because I'm in the education industry, it's industry as well, it's important that we as academics and we as business schools really talk about these topics with our students, because the future marketers will face different challenges, not the same
mm.
challenges that we or like our previous generations had to face in the business world. They will face different challenges with the climate change and all those things.
Yeah.
So they will have to do businesses differently. So we as business schools, we as academics, we need to start talking about, educate them in a different light actually.
Mm. Yeah, Samantika, coming to my next question, actually, in one of the recent other sessions that you did, actually, I was listening to you, and I heard you were saying like this moving to a rental services driven economy rather than buying things outright. If we can actually push customers or consumers to opt for rental services, we know already like Uber, right? For example, through such movements we can actually find a solution for this excessive consumption, which is literally actually depleting the resources of the surface of the planet earth, right?
Mm,
Now,
mm.
according to your view, like what are some of the industries you see as potential for someone to actually start thinking about a rental services business to bring down this overconsumption phenomenon, particularly in countries like ours. I mean, in the developing world, you can take examples from UK and US, of course, but like
Mm.
what are some of the industries areas, because that might be really helpful for some of the potential entrepreneurs who are tuning in today, for them to start a new business, think of a new business model.
Yeah, yeah, good question, Amitha. Thank you for that. Actually, renting in the sense, something, it's part of it is renting, but it's more about creating that safe shared consumption space
Mhm,
that enable sharing in consumption. So nowadays we don't need to own things to get the utility. We can actually rent or borrow things and then get the same, who owns something from someone else, and get the same, similar, not the same, I would say, similar satisfaction or a utility. So if you look at industries, like you said, Uber is one business model you can think about, but also like Airbnb is another business, quite a good example. You might have seen. And when doing such things, it's important to use the technology. So I've been using a really cool app recently. I also talk about this app in the presentation that you mentioned. So it's called the blah blah car. So basically, imagine I'm going from Nottingham to London, and I'm driving, and I have three extra spaces. So I can advertise, like kind of advertise, put a notification saying that I have three extra spaces. Do you want to go to London, for instance, from Nottingham? And then I can charge a really minimum price, just to share the petrol cost, or and the fuel cost. And then I can take three people with me instead of those three people taking their three cars and going to London. So I've been thinking about this as a solution. In the Sri Lankan context, we
Mm.
have so much traffic in Colombo. Why not people
Yeah,
someone do something like that? So it will
yeah.
help, of course, people not to drive all of them to
Hmm.
Colombo, and
Yeah,
also
actually, there have a few carpooling startups started in Colombo, but like I mean, with the pandemic, I think all of their, the business plans would have actually gone. Otherwise, I think not the car rental services, the Uber Pick Me model, but I saw a couple of like carpooling
hmm,
apps, just
hmm,
just as you mentioned, popping up, but unfortunately
COVID.
the pandemic, COVID,
Yeah.
those carpooling companies, I don't know what's their status at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know now with the COVID, many things have changed. But
yeah,
having said that, there's another really interesting app that I keep on using called Olio, which is a which is a app that was designed to combat food waste. So, for
right,
instance, if let's say I buy one kg of flour and I'm only using 500 grams, I can give away the rest of the 500 grams. I can put a notification saying I have extra 500 grams of flour. Anyone needs it, come and pick it up from me. So like that, you can share food, excess food that you have with others, and also it benefits so many people who don't have money to buy food, for instance. So this app has now over 5 million users, and it facilitates sharing over 6.5 million food portions. So
okay,
this app itself, Amita, is saving 19.3 million car miles, over 1 billion liters of water that is
right.
normally used in food production. So the food
Mm-hmm.
waste is massive in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine in Sri Lanka we don't waste that much food, because we also have like different, we have cats and dogs in our houses who eat that food, and also we give away food. So it
Yeah.
might not be such a huge issue. But then
Mm-hmm.
also I've seen quite a lot of food waste from various
Yeah.
restaurants, hotels, that they can use this kind of a app, and work in such a innovative way to tackle certain problems that we face nowadays. So I also
Yeah.
see lots of questions. Amita, are we taking questions later,
Yeah,
or?
we'll take few questions later. You can actually keep your questions coming in. And one thing about something about the food waste, because you mentioned about the Sri Lankan countries, but I've read somewhere that like contrary to the popular belief that like uh, we do share food and all that, but Sri Lanka is among one of the biggest countries when it comes to food wastage, because I mean, yeah, I mean, the people who are having it, they are wasting it, while
Wasting it, yeah.
a complete opposite side of the society
Yeah.
are actually starving. So, I mean, that's a sad status to be in. But maybe someone can actually come up with a idea to actually solve that problem. And one more example, Samantika, I recently saw on a YouTube video or a Facebook video. There's this I think this is a British program, I think Dragon's Den, right, the entrepreneurial reality show.
Yeah.
There's a lady who presented the case to the Dragon's Den, where she's trying to solve the problem of toddler wardrobe, right now. So her idea is basically now, like I mean, the toddler clothing, like I mean, your baby grow up so fast, so I mean, you can't actually use those clothes anymore. So then, what she's doing is she's doing a rental service for toddler clothing,
Mm.
toddler wardrobe. So if I subscribe for that. I mean, it's like, I think, 15 pounds a month, or I don't know,
mm,
whatever.
mm, mm.
And then for that, actually, I'm getting a bundle of clothes which is worth much more than my monthly rental, which I can actually use with my toddler. And as the toddler grows up, I can return that and then take another bunch of clothes for the size of the baby. So that I felt as a brilliant idea. Actually, this clothes rentals, right?
Mm.
And somewhere else I saw another case study about like how much of a wastage we do in terms of t-shirts, like how
Yeah.
many t-shirts we print and we create like every year, which actually goes as, just
Mm,
wastage. If we
mm.
can keep reusing uh, or sharing it, how much of a sustainability we can actually
Yeah.
achieve. So those are
Yeah.
some of the things that
Yes.
I could remember as you were
Mm.
actually speaking. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can add to that while I'm going through the comments to
And
see whether
yeah.
there are any questions we can take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually, Amita, it's a good one that you talked about this toddler wardrobe, which I was also thinking every day. The toys that I buy for the little one, because they outgrow those toys, and those are like plastic at the end of the day. So I was thinking, what can I do? Because I keep on buying new toys, and after a few days, he doesn't want them anymore. So I was checking a similar app online, and there are so many apps like that, renting toys even. So I can use
Mm.
those toys for 1 month and then uh, return them back similarly. And also, like
Yeah.
you said, the clothes, the fast fashion industry is one of the most unsustainable industries in the world, and we are if we keep on doing this, we will be in big trouble in the future. And also, all the packaging that we are dumping, by 2050 there will be more plastic on seas than
Mm.
on the sea than the sea life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I saw a comment from Neil De Silva about the packaging. Absolutely. I mean, that's another area where there is a lot of, resource wastage is happening. We
yeah,
can do recycling of packaging.
yeah. Yeah. And also, like, there are now so many companies who are not using packaging. For
Mm.
instance, Hush, which is a beauty brand, they don't use any packaging. You just have to go there and buy your soap and everything, and there's no packaging in it at all. Olio is Olio. Someone is asking the if you want to check
Right.
that app, Shavindra, it's Olio, Olio app, which I'm also doing couple of research projects with them as well, because it's kind of a really interesting business model, and they give us data, and we are helping them to improve based on the research findings, which is a fascinating app. And they have this service that they also collect food from various retailers like big supermarkets and cafes, and then they distribute them. Uh, they have a group called Food Waste Heroes, where it's a
Mhm.
voluntary activity. They collect them and then they distribute them with people who are in need. Even though we think about UK has lot of hunger as well. There's like food insecurity in the UK quite a lot.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are in need, and this app is a fascinating way to tackle that issue as well. So in case if you want to read anything, it's a very popular one.
Yeah.
um,
And there's a comment from Aminda, why not comfortable quality public transport instead of private transport as an alternative? Yes. Let me add one thing to this, Samantika. Yes, I'll pass it to you after that. Yeah. I mean, when I actually read Aminda's comment, what came to my mind is, yes, this is, I mean, for our country, for Sri Lanka specifically, this is the solution,
yeah.
right? But if you think about the globe, the entire world as a whole, I think in most of the, industrialized countries, they already have good quality public transport, and we need to see, like, from consumers and what else we can do, right? But
Mm.
I mean, this is absolutely correct in terms of the Sri Lankan context. There's a lot
Yeah.
we can actually create a sustainability by building a proper public transport
Transport.
system. But until such thing happens, I think we need to think as consumers, startup entrepreneurs, how
Entrepreneurs.
we can contribute, to how we can actually
Yeah.
do something.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, I mean, the yes, definitely, policymakers have a really big role to play in this. I mean, the like the quality public transport that should come from the policymakers and the government itself. So that is a the best solution. Actually, even in the UK, they privatized the national rail, and now it's so expensive people cannot afford it anymore. So even though we think that UK has really good public services, they at the end privatized it, and now it's not affordable and people start using their private cars. So it is something that is yes, definitely, policymakers, like I said, there should be macro level solutions. At the beginning I said in
Yeah,
sustainable marketing, there should be macro level solutions, but like Amita said correctly, in a country like Sri Lanka, it's so hard for us to keep waiting for the policymakers to do some changes. So why not entrepreneurs start something to save, not
yeah,
just to save the world, but also to save ourselves, also to make a profit. This oleo is making huge profits. It's
mm,
not just a business that is giving away food, but they are also making profits. So it's not just
yeah.
about saving the world, but also making profits.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something else I read somewhere else actually. Like, I mean, one of the biggest, the mistakes the sustainable marketers, the green marketers are saying their slogan is "Save the world," right? But end of the day, I mean, nobody wants to actually save the world. The world will take care of
Itself.
itself because
Yes.
the planet Earth survived so many millions of years of disaster and everything. Save
Mm,
ourselves.
mm.
That has to be the appeal, I think, to the marketers and the consumers. Okay, we have a question from Sandaru. Sandaru Bandara, is there a way of showing ROI based on sustainable marketing? So I think it's a good question because so if we have an answer to this, then we can actually go back and pitch it to the higher management. This is why we have to do this, and this is how we are going to measure it.
So Sandaru, I think it's not just now sustainable marketing is not in isolation with other business activities. It
Hmm.
has to be embedded in all the business activities that the organizations are doing. For instance, if you look at Unilever, now their whole business plan and their whole business strategy is aligning with sustainable marketing. So at the end of the day, their ROI will take into account their sustainable marketing activities as well. So it's not just that we are taking sustainable marketing in isolation, but it is part and parcel of the whole business strategy as well. So
Right. And we have another question from Sulakkana. Is UK considering shared economy? Isn't it the same model for sharing resources? Yes.
yeah, it's a good question, Sulakana. I think yes, these shared consumption spaces are part of the shared economy, and in the UK, you see quite a lot of activities that are happening that can be considered as part of shared economy, and or some people call them gig economy as well. So of course there are problematic areas. If you look at Uber, there are certain problematic areas in it, but yes, so these shared services, shared consumption spaces fits in with the shared economy concept as well.
Right. And we have another question from Salman. He's asking, how does course marketing fit within sustainable marketing practices? How can an e-commerce business align with this? I think two questions. And any examples apart from the usual saving the environment? Yes. Uh,
Yes, Mohammed, I think yes. Now course marketing, now sustainable marketing. Okay, so the large umbrella is sustainable and ethical marketing. So inside the sustainable and ethical marketing, you have sustainability, which is part of it is thinking about the environment, and then the ethical marketing is thinking about everything else as well, not just the environment or saving the environment, but also thinking about human rights, thinking about other aspects. Now, cost related marketing can be within the umbrella of sustainable marketing, but it's more about a cause that companies more interested about. For instance, one company could be interested about um, child labor cause, and they will do various interventions, initiatives to support this cause. Uh,
Mhm.
whereas whereas another company might have another cause as their prominent cause. So all these things can come under the umbrella of sustainable and ethical marketing, and cause related marketing can be one a small part of that, whereas sustainable marketing is a larger umbrella than that. Need to think about various aspects, not just the environment but also the society as well. And when
Yeah.
you think about the e-commerce, like I said before, there are various examples that technology can come into play. I don't know if you want to know specifically e-commerce, how certain e-commerce examples, but I think it's more about any organization can use sustainable marketing principles in their
Mm.
business activities. It's not just about
Maybe one thing the e-commerce industry can do is they have to first actually look inwards and identify where they are actually like wasting. Maybe I don't know, like maybe the packaging, because e-commerce industry requires a lot of packaging. I mean,
mm,
bubble wrappers and all that, right? So how can they actually minimize some of those areas? I'm just like thinking
yeah,
aloud. Yeah, but if you
depending
look
on the
at what
business.
are the, yeah,
Yeah, depending on the sorry, Amit, go on.
no, I was saying like, I mean the as industry as a collective, they can look into like what are those, like, the touch point where they can actually further improve it, and
Yeah,
after that they
yeah,
themselves actually come back with a solution.
yeah. And also, Amit, it depends on the business, like you said, like if they are using any packaging, but also not just the saving environment, but also thinking about how they are giving incentives to their delivery crew, thinking about their well-being. Also, those things are also part of this ethics and sustainability as well. So it's not just about the saving the environment, but also say treating well
Yeah,
the employees. It's also part of doing a business
absolutely.
sustainably.
Yes.
So in e-commerce,
Yeah.
like you said, there could be some questionable areas in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we are fast approaching the time allocated for today's
Yeah, I
session,
see.
but nevertheless, we get a lot of questions. So
Yeah, I
let
know.
me shoot this question as well. This is from Asita. I think Asita is asking from a startup. I think he's asking from a startup perspective, how a startup can take up sustainable marketing or marketing sustainability.
Yes, Asita. So it now, if you need to look at the whole process of marketing, and then you need to think about how you are going to be sustainable in the whole process of marketing, how you are going to extract resources, how in the production process if it's a manufacturing, or else, and also like how consumers will consume, then the packaging and all sorts of things. But if it's a service. How resource intensive the service is, and how can you minimize these resources usage in the startup. So I don't know if it makes sense, but it, like I said before, it really depends on what kind of a startup that you do. For instance, now Amita has a, I don't know if your company is a startup, Amita, but API at DM is kind of a startup, right?
It's kind of like at the growth stage.
Growth
Yeah.
stage now, yes.
Yeah.
So I think like if you really focus on each and every aspect of your business process and the business model, there are various elements that you will be able to see that how you can be more
Hmm.
sustainable. Even like
Yes.
promoting, how you can be more sustainable in promoting.
Hmm.
Are you using any kind of claims, green claims, sustainability claims, and are you actually doing
Hmm.
something in terms of sustainability, or are you just using those things? And then how well are you managing your resources, like
Yeah.
are you wasting a lot, or are you reducing your resources? Are you using your resources in a more efficient way? So the whole process you need to take these
Yeah.
things into consideration. And of course, if you are using resources efficiently, and if you are more sustainable, you can communicate it to your consumers, and
Yeah.
consumers will love it, and you can
Absolutely.
get this.
Actually, one thing we are pushing so hard is to create an online learning culture in Sri Lanka, because I mean, I mean, because of the pandemic, we had to move all our classes online. But still, like, I mean, we get a lot of inquiries asking when are you going to start the offline classes. Yes, that I mean, I mean, are people, they still want to actually come to a real offline classroom and have that experience, which is, I mean, nothing wrong in it, but like it has to be blended. I think if we can, in the education industry, where education industry can be a little more sustainable, is blending the learning, classroom learning and the online learning, self-paced learning. The reason is, the moment you actually reduce the number of uh, in-person classroom sessions, you cut back on a lot of energy usage. I mean, you don't have to travel to that one place. You can
Yeah.
like join the class from wherever you are, right?
Hmm.
So of course, I mean, there are other things like the electricity consumption and all that. But so I mean, in the discussion, I was thinking like, I mean, those are some of the things we can actually do in the education industry.
Yeah, definitely, Amitha.
uh
So I
Samantika, now there's a massive
massive
question,
question.
right?
Of course,
So,
I'm not surprised
let,
it's coming from Aminder.
yes, right. No, so let me try putting it on the screen so it covers basically both of our faces, right? So,
Yeah.
let me actually break it into two pieces. The first question is: can developing countries adopt these sustainability marketing practices and developing countries? So we'll take that one. I mean, how, because I mean, I think it's a very interesting question, Samantha, because like, something that I keep hearing is, when we see these new concepts coming in from the Western world, especially from UK, right? In our region, former colonized countries, one of the resistance which comes from our markets is, it's easy for you to say this to us now because you have done your, the, so all the things, right? Now you're actually preaching us to be sustainable and all that. So this
Hmm.
argument always actually pops up. So, taking Aminder's question also, how this can be actually implemented in a developing country, third world country. So, what's your take on it?
Yes, I partially agree with that resistance because it's quite hypocritical for the Western world to tell the developing countries, look, now stop consuming because you should not, because we have already screwed up with the world and we have already used so much resources. And actually, if you look at the carbon footprints, still, US has the high, if you take average US consumer, average US consumer is using five more earths basically, and
Hmm.
average UK consumer is using three more earths. So basically, still majority of the responsibility lies on the developed world. If I have to be honest with you, because they are consuming much more than they should consume. And then if you look at I'm not sure what is the exact footprint of Sri Lanka, but if you look at the Indian footprint, average Indian consumer is using zero point 0.8 earths, which they are using bit lesser. But of course, this is just a average. So some consumers are using much more, whereas other consumers are using much lesser. So it might not give the clearest picture of the income. It depends on the income distribution and all those things. But on average, still the Western world is has a big responsibility, and consumers are moving away from this excessive consumerism nowadays in this part of the world. Whereas if you take countries like Sri Lanka, our grandparents were more sustainable, our parents are still more sustainable compared to our generation. And yes, we are moving towards that consumer society that talks about excessive consumption is the it brings you happiness and all sorts of things. But but um, but still, our previous generations did better than us. And can we be more sustainable in the developing world? Yes, especially when we look at certain areas like wastage, how we are managing our waste. So we are not really managing our waste well, because we don't have that kind of literacy, sustainable literacy, as much as some other countries. Because one of the drawbacks that I see in Sri Lanka is we don't have sustainability in our education system. We don't
Hmm.
really talk about it. Whereas in the UK, in primary education, they take all these students into a waste handling factory and show them what are the waste that should go to different bins. All these things are part of their primary education, and also also in the university level we talk quite a lot about sustainability and all sorts of things. I'm not sure now how the university system works because I studied my undergrad degree like donkey years ago, but that time we didn't have any much conversation about sustainability, not
Mm.
any but much conversation about
Yes.
sustainability.
Maybe Aminda can add what's the latest development
Yes,
there.
exactly.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to the second part of Aminda's question. Now, he's building an argument. We'll talk about this. Like now, is this whole sustainable marketing principle comes from the political agenda of socialism? Is the world is moving towards socialism? That's Aminda's question. So, what your take on it?
Well, there are some good elements of socialism that the world is adopting to, whereas like especially when it comes to shared consumption or like improving public health, improving public like free education, public health. These are good concepts that can really help the whole society to grow and to come to the next level. So there are
Hmm.
some good bits of the socialism that are adopted by. One of the criticisms that in the UK that we have in our business schools and our university system is that we are teaching socialisms to students. That's one of the criticisms that we have. It's not that, it's just that there are some good elements of socialism that we have to talk about, whereas if we go to extreme capitalism we see there are a lot of problems like we see nowadays, like
Mhm.
excessive profits, like at the expense of so many things, at the expense of environment, at the expense of the human well-being basically, and other species well-being as well. So it's not about purely socialism, but taking some bits of socialism, of course, yes,
Yeah.
it is always better to take some good bits of that as well.
Yeah. So we have okay. I'm going to take just one last question from the audience, and after that, I have a couple of more questions for Samantika before we wind up. We have Chandra asking, sustainable labeling is another strategy to differentiate in the profit making business. How do you see it? I think this is something, especially the garment industry and most of the industries are currently looking at, right?
Yes, you mean sustainable labeling in the sense using sustainability claims in the packaging or using sustainability in their promotions? Is does what do you mean, Chandra, exactly?
I think it's about the package labeling, right? Sustainable labeling. I don't know. Chandra, you may comment to add to that. In the meantime, yeah, Aminda is sharing a news about USJ. University of Srejadran is going to be the first carbon emission zero university in Southeast Asia. We are in the process. I mean, that's absolutely great to hear because I mean these type of
Mm.
developments. It's
Yeah,
really
definitely.
okay. Yeah, I think Chandra has
If
an.
Chandra is asking about sustainability claims just to make profits and to differentiate companies, yes, which is a big, massive problem all across the world. If you look at countries like UK, they have very kind of very watchful advertising
Mm,
watchdogs, keep on
yeah.
looking at the advertising claims, and are they really doing that? For instance, Ryanair recently claimed that they are greening and they are more sustainable, and advertising watchdog stepped in and absolutely looked at the process and said no, you cannot make this claim. But if you look at countries like Sri Lanka, yes, we have that massive problem that companies are claiming that they are green, but are they actually? Maybe some companies are green, but if all the companies are using these claims, then it is affecting the credibility and consumers become suspicious about these green claims. So it is problematic. So we call it greenwashing, and it's a big problem all across the world.
Right. Okay. So I think we had a wonderful discussion today, very engaging from the audience as well. So before we wind up, actually, I have a very important question. One last question, Samantika. Now, okay. Now you are a product of the free education system you mentioned, right? And you completed your bachelor's degree in a state university in Sri Lanka, and then after that you moved to UK, and now enjoying a successful academic career, right? In one of the top rated prestigious universities in the UK. So, what's your message to those who kind of like undermine the collective competency of the local state university system in Sri Lanka, because you are an example that the university system can produce great academics. There are like plenty of like great professionals. So what do you see as our strength as the state university system in Sri Lanka, and what are some of the weaknesses that we can fix to overcome in order to produce more world class people? I mean, in both in the academia and in the professional world as well, because I mean there are plenty of, you mentioned about Sitira working in Canada, and there are plenty of, I was actually to invite as a guest for this show. I was actually researching on LinkedIn some of my connection, and I found one of my school time buddies who is doing really well in physics in United States. He's a professor in one of the universities there. I mean, he's a graduate from Morato University, now a professor in physics in one of the universities in US. Like there are plenty of people like that. So what's your message to the people who
Uh,
are watching?
Yeah, thank you, Amit. Great question. First of all, again, I would like to really emphasize that I'm really grateful for the free education of Sri Lanka. And I am who I am thanks to that. And my foundation was laid by the Sri Lankan education system. And today, if I am successful, due credit should go to my first alma mater, Japura, and it's fantastic. And also, like you said, it's heartbreaking to see that sometimes people who have not set foot into any university, either overseas or Sri Lanka, is really undermining the collective success of the local university system. Largely, I think there's a huge role played by the media. Our media is nasty, Amita. It's nasty, and I have to say that. And also, we have this mentality in Sri Lanka, us versus them. So
Mhm.
media knows how to get the best out of this
Absolutely.
us versus them
This
mentality.
polarization, you polarize people as, okay, university educated people, not
Yes.
university educated people, and then
uh,
you create a fight. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. Now, one could tell that I am biased toward local university system, but I think I have a fair bit of experience across multiple universities. I've been working in two universities in Australia, one of which is a prestigious G8 university, and then three universities in the UK, one of which is my current university, is a prestigious Russell Group university, and then two other universities that they call them as modern, which are teaching universities. So I see that our students have enormous amount of capacity. They are creative, they are hardworking, they are ambitious. Something that I always reflect, and I always think fondly about the local university system in Sri Lanka. Our students were so creative. They have that ability to do things. They are really hardworking as well. But also, now, because you asked about like I said before, the media plays a big role. And also, the local system, local universities, they don't have PR budgets, they don't have marketing budgets to combat. Like, if someone is saying that, okay, this university has done this, but there's no PR team going and talking about this and trying to really, work around this whole bad mouthing and all this image tarnishing. Just happens, and like we go along with those stories and everything accumulated, and then they create that bad image about the system.
Yeah.
So so that is a big problem. And also, because I have experience, like, the downside I see, especially in our system, is that uh, it's not just about students, not just about academics, it's the society in general. I think the lack of growth mindset,
Mhm.
because as a society we think that we just want to have the degree. We are not really passionate about learning things. We just want to
Mm.
earn the degree. So I get, like, I get many calls, I get many messages from people asking me, how can I get a PhD easily,
Yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely.
they just
I,
want
I
to.
mean, I've seen this question in on many Facebook forums and all that. Like, I mean, everybody wants to get it easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in my field, I mean, digital marketing. I mean, like like a lot of the people who inquire about our programs, when we say that it's a 8 months program, or 8 months, I can't wait for 8 months. I need a 3 months program. So they
Yeah.
want to. I mean, they don't want to learn the thing; they want a certificate, right? So
Yes,
that, I mean,
exactly.
some of the people.
Yes, exactly. So this lack of growth mindset is impact, even though they are creative, even though they are ambitious, even though they are hardworking, they put all that effort just to have that degree instead of
Mm,
doing something really impactful. Now, don't get me wrong, this is the general thing. There are
mm, mm.
exceptions, right? Of course.
Yeah,
But then this mindset is really limiting them to achieve what they want to achieve in the world. I
yeah,
think it's
absolutely.
also the problem that our country is a developing country forever. Like, it's been a developing country, and this lack of growth mindset is a big problem that we have. And the other problem that I see is the lack of discipline. Now, when I
Mm.
say discipline, it's not about combing the hair and overtly respectful for lecturers. I'm not mentioning that, but it's about commitment to something
Yeah,
and doing things on time, doing things properly, not half
yeah,
baked things,
mm,
doing something properly, doing things
yeah,
on time. This is a big problem that I see in our whole society, and especially
yeah,
in our university system.
mm,
And if you look at the university system, we hugely lack good research. It's not
mm,
just any research, but we hugely lack good research. Now, one would argue we don't have funding, which is true. We don't have resources. Now, in our institutions, we have access to millions of books, any journal paper we want. They give us money to do research, but at the same time, they create certain KPIs that we have to do research. That's our job
mm, mm,
basically. It's all about research intensive teaching. We need to do research and we need to teach what we research.
mm,
But that part is hugely lacking in the Sri Lankan system. Whereas I see India, on the other hand, is doing amazingly well. They are doing so well that so many Indian universities are coming up in their ranking, doing so great in the research world. So these are a couple of things I see as problematic areas. And also I think the university system should stop inbreeding. They should let academics go out, get experience, come back, and also they should get academics from different parts of the world. They should recruit
mm.
academics from different parts of the world, different parts of university. This new thinking, new blood will bring a lot of changes to the university system. So I think if we start making those changes, we can improve even more. But I think in general our university system has a lot of strengths, lot of good students, creative students, good academics, good research are being done, impactful research, especially if you look at medical faculty, science faculties. Like for instance, during COVID time, Jayawardenepura University medical faculty did an amazing job, but media never talked
Absolutely.
about that.
Yeah,
Media
yeah.
hardly talk about it. But whenever there's a incident, a ragging incident, I'm not pro ragging at all, but whenever there's a ragging incident, the media will start talking about it, hammering and hammering over and over again. So that is what that make things worst, I think. So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah. And also this lack of growth mindset, this us and them, and this tribal mindset is also applicable. For instance, when we do research, collaboratively do research with the medical faculty, for instance, and they
Yeah.
are willing to do research with us, we are willing to do research with them. They want, if they want any behavioral experts, they come to us. So recently we bid for a 5 million grant, medical faculty and few people in our department. We bid for a 5 million grant. It is something about neonatal units in Kenya. They
Mm.
want to change something, but they wanted three behavioral experts, so they wanted us to join.
Yeah.
And they are
And
willing to
then
listen.
I think this new and upcoming areas like neuromarketing and even behavioral economics has a lot to do with biology, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you need biologists to work with
exactly. Exactly.
closely.
Exactly. So you need to collaborate, you need to see synergies. And also the whole university system should come together. Like Japura doing one thing, Kalania is doing another thing. No. If they collaboratively do things together, I think things will be better. Do research together, do conferences together. Why would Japura has to do a separate conference and Kalania should do a separate conference? Why can't all the marketing departments jointly do one conference and bring all those energies, all those things together to do
Mm.
something better? So I think this kind of thinking, this growth mindset, collaborative mindset will change the Sri Lankan university system. So I can give a lot of examples. I don't know if I have time to do that.
Yeah. No, actually, I think it was a great discussion, Samantika. We've gone about like 15 minutes over time, but that's fine because the audience is still there.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. So, yeah, actually, before we wind up, actually, because we had a wonderful discussion today and a lot of engagement, a lot of questions. Everybody was so, interested in the topic. Before we wind up, okay, so any final remarks to add from any of the points we discussed up to this point, Samantika? Yeah.
Yes, so I think one of the best question that you asked about is like the system and us as people, how
Hmm.
we can do something better. So I think one of the things that we need to really think about if we want to develop Sri Lanka as a country, we need to build an undivided society,
Hmm.
which is important. So to do that, we need to really come out of this us and them mentality in
Yeah.
every sense. Like, I'm not just
Absolutely.
saying in university sense, private institutes, private universities, public universities, then comes
Yeah.
the race, religion, the
Yeah.
elite schools and non-elite
Yeah.
schools. So
Yeah.
we need to come out
Absolutely.
all of
No,
these
I mean,
biasness.
you are spot on, Samantika, because I mean, like this polarization, and I mean, competition is good. Like, I mean, as an individual, I love competition. I mean, I love to compete, right? But competition doesn't mean you have to be enemies. But in Sri Lanka, in the business world, in everything, right? In the business world, in academia, and everywhere, like there's this mentality that your competitor is your enemy.
Yeah,
That's not the
exactly.
case. I mean, you should be able to open minded to collaborate with the competitors. You can collaborate with competitors in certain areas, in compete in other areas. I mean, there are plenty of examples from around the world for competing and collaborating simultaneously.
Yeah,
That's not something that we see in our culture, as you said. Like, I mean, it's very much polarized, and you always look at like this us versus them mentality and trying to overpower the competitor and all that. That might be a reason why we are actually lagging
yeah.
behind in so many areas, I
Yeah,
believe. Yeah.
exactly. And also, Amita, another thing, like Sri Lanka has like, we are, actually it's a paradise. We have good weather, we have resources, we have everything we want to, if we really want to develop Sri Lanka. But well, of course, there are certain problems, and also people who, I get a lot of calls every day asking how to migrate to the UK, thinking that my UK is the utopia, that everything is fine. No, every country has its challenges and every country has its problems, and some people are fixated with the idea that Sri Lanka will never be developed, which is also
Hmm.
wrong. you know
Hmm.
I mean, like, it's not the case. And some people think that Sri Lanka is the best and everything is better there, whoever. So no, it's also not the case. So let's not get fixated in anything, and let's be open, and let's try to learn things, grow, and always like try to engage with each other. Even people who left the country can do something back to the country,
Absolutely.
rather than just, like you said, like, you are doing great, Amit, doing these talk shows and like doing these things. One day I met a professor in University of Queensland who is a top shot in strategic marketing, and
Hmm.
he is a product of Japura proudly.
All right.
And he said, like, I've never been invited to any of the research conferences in Sri Lanka, maybe because I'm not a white person, because because in Sri Lanka, if someone is white, then
Yes.
it's
Yes.
nothing against white
Yeah.
people, but
If it's
some
from some other country, that's
exactly, they
super.
are the
But if it's a
best.
homegrown thing,
Yes, exactly. And this professor is a top-notch professor in strategic marketing, going all around the world, coming to Oxford, coming to Cambridge, doing sessions. But he said, like, no one invited me. Like, I even contacted many universities asking to share my knowledge, but no one wanted to invite me. So I think it's sad that
yeah.
we
No,
are
I
not.
mean, one thing that I firmly believe is, as you said, I mean, this polarization in our society. There's this other polarization: the people who stayed in the country and the people who migrated. I mean, I see these arguments all the time on Facebook. Like, okay, people actually again polarizing as the
Us
migrated
versus
people
them.
and us versus them. But I believe, I mean, there is no right or wrong solution, and the people who might decided to migrate, that's not a wrong decision.
Mm.
I mean, that's a decision that made. And the
Ye-
people who didn't migrate and decided to stay in Sri Lanka and do something, that's also not a wrong decision. They stayed for a reason, right?
Yeah.
What we have to look at it is we shouldn't actually undermine either of these, two groups of people. I mean, what I'm trying to do here with this show is actually, like, as someone who decided to stay, I
Hmm.
want to show rest of the people here. So this is what we can learn from the people who actually migrate, because let's be really honest. I mean, they are getting more exposure, more experiences in those other places compared to us. I mean, that's an obvious. So rather than actually, I mean, criticizing it or whatever, why don't we actually let them talk to our people and share some of those exposures, experience, so that the people who are here, they can also actually, you know you know get something out of those discussions. So that's the whole idea that I actually wanted to do this. Yes.
Yeah.
uh, I think we have
Time is up.
yes, it's like 20 minutes past the scheduled hour, but that's totally okay, because we had like plenty of things to talk, and we had a good audience today turning in, asking questions, sharing their opinion. This is what we want to actually create as a learning culture, growth mindset
Mm.
culture.
Mm.
I mean, what I wanted to say to all of you join today. I mean, not only this show, not only my show. I mean, there are plenty of other LinkedIn lives, Facebook lives, not just the gaming streams. Of course, you can watch game streamings as well, but there are plenty of educational live streamings happening in Sri Lanka. I know that Amitha is doing one every Thursday. He's doing a cinnamon chat with Amitha. That's on Thursday. So tune into these shows, because you'll get to hear from people who don't come on mainstream media regularly, like people like Samantika. And
I've
last
never
week
been
we talked
invited to
to
mainstream media.
we talked to Manoj Ranavir last week. I mean, who's having a great track record of being a startup entrepreneur in UK. So I mean, in Sri Lanka, mainstream media will never interview a person like Manoj, for example. And next week also, following week also, I have another person. So let's connect to these discussions. Let's listen to these people, get something out of them, get inspired by them, and do something, act something. So that's my message to the audience who tuned in uh, today. Right, okay, so with that, let's actually wind up the show for today. And I'll be in touch with me on LinkedIn. I'll let you know who is going to be our guest speaker for the next show. So that's going to be about, now we talked about media, the next professional is going to be from the media, not actually the media publishing, from media planning perspective. So I'll talk to another Sri Lankan expat who is doing really well in the media planning industry. So that will be in our next show. So thank you once again, Amantika, for the value addition you brought to the show today. And we'll
Thank you,
definitely will
Amita.
connect in another show like this in future. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much, everyone. If you want to connect with me, please connect with me via LinkedIn and ask any questions that you couldn't ask in the show. Thank you very much, Amita. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.